Number 10. Animated Scrap Trap. Not even an animated or cartoon version of Scrap Trap can redeem Scrap Trap's overall horrific image. Even when you try to make Scrap Trap cute, he remains one of the most terrifying animatronics around. This version of Scrap Trap and Springtrap is sometimes made to look a little less monstrous, given a shorter stature, is made cuter, and given less malicious expressions. But then there is still a very evident dark side that shines through. I mean, just look at this grin here. Springtrap, even when animated, is still always up to something, and should basically never be trusted. Nor should Scrap Trap. Number 9. Electric Scrap Trap. Electric Scrap Trap just sounds like a horrifying idea. Any animatronic just sounds awful, to be honest, because if the animatronics were electric, they could then harm you at range, and being near them wouldn't just mean you'd get jump scared, but also mean you could get shocked to death. Or possibly, I suppose, shocked to life? If you suffered a heart attack from the jump scare, actually maybe the electric shock would restart your heart. Wait, but then you'd be stuck in an endless loop of death, with the animatronics jump scaring you and then reviving you on repeat, possibly forever. So never mind, still not so great, and pretty scary overall. And friends, before we move on to this next spot, if you are loving this list and you want more fan alternate FNAF lists, be sure to let us know by giving this video a thumbs up. Every time you thumbs up a video, a new fan alternate comes into being. Some fan somewhere is like, I gotta draw this idea. Number 8. Fixed Springtrap / Scrap Trap. Fixed Scrap Trap doesn't sound scary at first, and then you see what some fans have done with this design. The eyes for many versions that I've looked at is what makes this fan-made alternate so unsettling for me. The fact that everything on this animatronic looks put together and almost brand new, save for the fact that you can still kind of tell there is someone in the suit, and someone who might not be doing well, and is likely still dead. The contrast of that clean suit with those manic eyes is pretty much what haunts me here. Something very unhinged about this version.
And at 7, Am I Real? Am I Real, also known as Cake Bear, is presumably the primary and most recurring antagonist in Dormitibus. Am I Real has 2 different forms. His first form is Cake Bear. Cake Bear's design originated from the Save Him minigame, where he delivered cake to children while a child is killed outside. He is also the predecessor to both Fredbear and Freddy Fazbear. Cake Bear is a brown bear animatronic that also acts as a spring-locked suit that appears in most of the main nights. Although they look slightly similar, the only similarities that he has to Freddy Fazbear is that they're both bears, and they wear a top hat, are brown, and have blue eyes. That's about it. Am I Real's second form is Am I Real, and is a form that resembles Springtrap. This form has a green color much like Springtrap, and contains human remains, because of course it does. His right eye socket has gotten bigger on the side, and a big hole can be seen on the right side of his head. His top hat has received some withering on it as well, and his lower jaw is slanted and worn down. No longer circular like Cake Bear's. He has a sizable hole in the right side of his torso, revealing organs inside. Rips and tears also cover his arms, revealing even more human remains. He appears to be missing at least 1 finger on his right hand, and is absolutely terrifying to look at. Of course, a decent amount of these are going to be from Dormitibus, because like, have you seen the Dormitibus animatronics? They're just horrifying.
Number 6. Peekaboo Scrap Trap. I like to call this one Peekaboo Scrap Trap just for the way this redesign looks. The main difference between this version of the character and the original one from the games is that we can more easily see William Afton's head here, or what's left of it at least. The new head on this version has the original animatronic head sitting more back and up, as though the top of the head was pulled up and away from the bottom half, the jaw. The top part of the animatronic head kind of rests on top of, well, I guess whatever is left of William Afton's head inside the suit, kind of like when you put sunglasses on top of your head for easy access and safekeeping when you no longer want to be wearing them on your face. The result is a very eerie face that we get to see, still shrouded in darkness, peering out at us from inside the gaping hole where the animatronic's mouth is open wide. This specific fan-made redesign that I'm talking about here was shared by Atlas Zodiac on Reddit. You should check it out because it's pretty creepy and pretty great.
Halfway through into number 5, Final Nights. 2 words. Kill me. I don't want to deal with this thing, so if I'm ever in a situation where I come into contact with this thing, be it virtual or in the real world somehow, I'm going to tell it to kill me. Because no. Just no. This thing is horrifying, and there's only one real image of it. The suit over the exoskeleton is even more torn and tattered, and the glowing dots for eyes make it not any better. My pants are now the color of this animatronic because of it. How does William even have glowing dots for eyes? Like, shouldn't he just have normal eyes? because he's still human. I'm so confused. Look, this thing could find me in broad daylight with a million people around it and be frozen still, and I still wouldn't mess with it. This thing looks crazy. Why is Final Nights so goddamn terrifying? It scares me with the Reaper puppet, and it scares me with its version of Springtrap. I don't know if it's just an Easter egg or an actual antagonist, but I don't plan on sticking around to find out.
Number 4. Burned Scrap Trap. Typically, the Burned Scrap Trap fan-made version reveals to us a version of this animatronic who has less limbs and less of a suit left. The skeleton beneath the corpses and organs is revealed in some parts, prominently the skull. One take has the entire upper head of the suit missing, with little stumps of wire where the ears would be. Imagine being burnt in a suit with metal ears on it. It would not be pleasant at all. And it would probably be very hot on your head as that metal started to heat up. I'm like imagining what it would be like, and it's already like just painful to me. I'm surprised we don't see more burned versions of Scrap Trap with melted brains actually oozing out of the nose holes. Going into a fire, it seems like a goopy or boiled brain would be a very real reality.
Getting close to the end in number 3, Daylight Springtrap. Daylight Springtrap is a version of Springtrap fan-made as a proposition for Dead by Daylight, a popular multiplayer survival horror where you play as either one of the survivors or the killer. The killer has options between the look and class of the killer, and this creation was a proposition for the game to add a Springtrap character, which would require a load of licensing fees, but we'll pretend like it would be possible. This thing would scare the living hell out of me in either game. It's just horrific. Just the horrific nature of these creations makes me sick to my stomach. There are multiple versions of this animatronic, and they all just make me feel like I'm going to suffer. Some may say just to add the normal Springtrap animatronic, but I'm not sure. What do you think? Would you like to see a Springtrap killer in Dead by Daylight? And if you did, would you want a unique design or the original Springtrap that we all know and love? Be sure you let me know in the comments.
Number 2. Ignited Springtrap. All that remains seemingly of this version of Springtrap is his skeleton. Ignited Springtrap seems almost chalky when it comes to his look, being that he is mostly just bits of burnt flesh and suit and exposed brittle bones. The one plus about this scary fan-made version, if you had to face it, is that you would probably find it pretty easy to defeat because it's just a walking skeleton, which means it probably wouldn't be that strong as it has no muscles left. At least that's how I always imagine fighting skeletons in real life, but then again, being just bones means that you're likely harder to hit with a ranged attack as you have less mass, so I guess there are pros and cons to taking on skeletal enemies like Ignited Springtrap. Number 1. Scorched Scrap Trap / Springtrap. Yeah, there are lots of different versions that like to reimagine Springtrap or Scrap Trap as being pretty heavily burnt. Scorched Scrap Trap is no exception. This fan-made fire-based version of the animatronic, however, I think is one of the scariest. Why? Because it reimagines the animatronic as something that is a little less human-like in appearance to me. One fan-made version shows the scorched version in half shadow, obstructing its facial features from clear view and making it appear more ominous. Other versions imagine Scorched Scrap Trap as resembling the burned up ghost version that haunted us in FNAF 3 at the Fazbear's Fright attraction, because obviously at that time Springtrap was around and was alive, so not a ghost, just a corpse in a suit.
And at 10, Grim Chica. The first Springlock victim in the Final Nights series, Grim Chica is a primary antagonist in Final Nights 3 Nightmares Awoken. Unlike the others, she is not a Reaper animatronic. Grim Chica holds a strong appearance to the Springlock suit on the poster for the Night 3 cutscene, but her face plates are very hard to spot. And she's also almost entirely purple. The glowing accents inside of her resemble a human corpse. She lacks a bib unlike the original Chica. Her overall body is very slim like the original toy Chica, except for her hips, which appear to be much wider for birthing purposes, and she lacks shoulders or upper arms, with her forearms protruding from her armpits. Grim Chica is also revealed to be a Springlock victim in the museum levels, saying, quote, "A victim of a Springlock failure, forever forced to haunt the suit she was wearing, now being manipulated by your sister and mother. Tried spray on tan, still very pale." I relate to that. No matter what I do, I'll always be pale and pasty, okay? But I'm fine with that. However, while she is also a Springlock victim, she's in the suit that she was wearing, therefore she is a Springlock animatronic. Alright, so I'm like, come on. I mean, I'll also be like, what did you do to my girl Chica? Like, I'm sorry, Mommy Kentucky. I didn't mean to These are transgressions. Keep my wife's name! And at 9, Grim Fredbear. Grim Fredbear is one of the antagonists of Final Nights 3 Nightmares Awoken. He is only active on night 5 and is found in the left hallway. Grim Fredbear resembles the normal golden Fredbear, only with his suit glowing a deep purple color while the interior of the suit glows a bright white. His upper face appears to be torn off, including his eyes, leaving an empty, hollow, gaping hole in its place. That sounded weird. The inside of the mask, though it appears like there is nothing inside, actually conceals a white, pale human head that can only be seen during his jump scare. And before you ask, yes, it's mine. This animatronic is clearly meant to be a reference to Shadow Freddy and the theory that these Shadow animatronics were Springlock victims, which is later confirmed by Scott to be false when stating that only William was a victim of a Springlock failure. But in the museum level of this game, which unlocks after night 5, it is also revealed that Grim Fredbear has a Springlock suit, saying, quote, another Springlock failure victim, the second generation of Fredbear. And at 8, Golden Call. As a human when alive, Golden Call's name was Kyle. However, now he is a Springlock victim stuck inside a Golden Freddy Springlock suit. Golden Call has the typical run-down Springlock suit vibe, similar to Springtrap. However, this is much more gruesome. His left ear is bent, he has bugs coming out of basically every hole in the body, human eyes are hanging out of the animatronic's eye sockets, just dangling there, like my grandfather's tie. He's missing an exosuit on his right foot, and the character is holding a flesh-colored, at least flesh-colored, it might even be flesh-made phone in his right hand that stays stuck to his head via more flesh and blood strands connecting it. Yeah, it's gross. It's a monstrosity. And looking at the age on the wiki, Kyle was only 5 years old when he got spring-locked, which is absolutely just horrible. God, that sucks. That would be rough. I would be offended if that happened to me. Like, yo, I'm only 5. What did I do to deserve this? And at 7, Scorched Springtrap. Scorched Springtrap is different than its canon counterpart from FNAF AR. Scorched Springtrap in essence looks like a phantom version of Springtrap, like as if it was a hallucination in FNAF 3. Basically a burnt version of Springtrap after the fire at Fazbear Frights. Speaking of which, it looks like they just showed up across the street, because there's fire trucks over there. But I'm sure you're seeing it, so you know what I mean. Sure, normal Springtrap is pretty spooky, but this guy just takes it one step further and really messes with your head. It's ironic given how you can actually see Springtrap on multiple cameras in FNAF 3 as another hallucination. So, Scorched Springtrap looking like a phantom makes sense. Speaking of which, in at number 6, Garvey, a psychopathic, cold-blooded killer. He stopped being human long ago. That's how Garvey is described in the extras of Dormitibus, the game from which he hails. Garvey is the penultimate antagonist to Dormitibus, and as a human, he was a man who killed the missing children, and later went on to get trapped in Spring Bonnie, becoming Springtrap, and then was burnt to a permanent death in the Fazbear Frights fire. That's where these two differ, okay? Garvey is a much more gory version of Springtrap from FNAF 3, and one that actually dies. However, it is not William Afton, as this game was released before the name reveal, so even before FNAF 4. Springtrap, but with hardly any exosuit or animatronic casing, whatever you want to call it, right? He crawls on all fours, uses his left hand as a foot and his left foot as a hand, like some demon crab thing that I did not want in my life. Okay, like just look at this thing and tell me that it's right. You'll be lying. You're wrong if you think that this is okay.
Number 5, Springtrap After the Fire. This fan-made alternate version allows one to imagine what it would be like to gaze upon Springtrap after he's already been melted by the flames and forever altered. Mostly he looks kind of distorted and goopy here. Overall, just not pleasant to gaze upon or spy lurking in the shadows behind you. Springtrap After the Fire often has more organs exposed, or in some cases has no outer suit left at all. Some fan-made takes on this version also show that the corpse beneath has lost its eyes, with them supposedly melting away in the flames, while other versions show the eyes as somewhat malformed due to the heat, becoming somehow, I guess, partially melted. Alternatively, one fan reimagined this version of Springtrap as just a pile of ashes with eyes and an arm sticking out. Seems pretty accurate.
Coming in at 4, Shadow Spring Bonnie. Shadow Spring Bonnie is one of the two primary antagonists of Final Nights 2. He is also one of the final animatronics in that game. Shadow Spring Bonnie resembles Springtrap, as to be expected when mentioning Springlock suits, and similar to Springtrap, he lacks the suit on his feet and has the majority of his right ear missing. but overall he has rips, but is not really missing any limbs or parts at all, which is a stark contrast to the burnt animatronics from the first 4 nights of Final Nights 2. His face glows white, which is notable when he is in the hallway, but also gives him a more sinister appearance, and pushes the something supernatural idea that most of these animatronics have, well, the shadow ones at least. Like Shadow Bonnie from FNAF AR, okay? It's something like the Winchesters are gonna have to hunt. Well, Winchester. Shadow Spring Bonnie takes on the role of Burnt Freddy and Burnt Foxy on night 5. He is very fast, so the player must seal the vent quickly, otherwise they'll get jump scared, and he can also appear in the hallway. Never use the flashlight though, or you will get insta-gibbed. Also, if he appears in the hallway, inspect his face, okay? If he's twitching, close the door, then a rattling sound will let you know when he's left, but if he's not twitching, don't. Okay, the fact that you need to look at his face to actually like kind of focus on it just makes him worse, okay? I don't like looking at faces, okay? I'm an antisocial person.
Number 3, Hellfire Scrap Trap. Possibly one of the scariest alternate versions of Scrap Trap around when it comes to fan-made versions. This version of the killer animatronic possesses an even sharper bone shank, and it looks like it's partially melted, with the outer part of the suit looking like it has melded or completely melted with the corpse of William Afton beneath it. Basically, this version of Scrap Trap looks like it has returned from hell after being placed into its otherworldly blazing fires, which could very well be the story of what happened in this scenario, just based on the fan-made animatronic's appearance. This version of Scrap Trap also only seems to have one eye left remaining. One eye left. The depth perception must be really not great for that version of Scrap Trap.
And ultimately, in at number 2, you! Spoiler alert for a fan game, but if I say which fan game, I'm going to spoil it. So if you want to avoid spoilers, click array right now. You can probably just skip to the next number using the timestamps, okay? Alright. I'll give you a chance to do that, and okay, that's your chance. That's it. You're done. Okay. A Shadow Over Freddy's is a FNAF fan game created by Fiznom on Game Jolt. It was released on the 25th of April 2018, and since it was made by the same guy who's currently working on FNAF Plus for the Fazbear fanverse, you know it's bound to be good. The gameplay of Ace Off is a hybrid between the traditional point-and-click game and a free-roaming horror game. The player wakes up to find themselves with no memories in a black and white abandoned Freddy Fazbear's Pizza and is tasked with surviving 5 nights and escaping the restaurant. The player is given a different task each night that they must complete before 6 AM, and without being attacked by any roaming animatronics, obviously. However, the ending to the game has you getting trapped in a springlock suit and being left to rot, meaning that you are a springlock animatronic, which is probably one of the scariest things of all, because I don't know you, but like I'd rather not get spring locked. It's also revealed that you then play as Afton, so it's kind of a fan character, kind of not, but like it's a fan way of having it happen. All right, good enough for me. And finally, in at number 1, Fred Trap. To be honest, I searched this up just for the hell of it, because like originally we thought that Afton was using the Golden Freddy suit to kill people, but there are actually Fredbear versions of Springtrap. Fredbear is exactly what you'd expect. Springtrap's look on a yellow Freddy animatronic. The designs are actually really well made and honestly scarier than normal Springtrap for me, and like I don't know why. I guess like for some reason when I just think bears are scarier than bunnies. I wonder why. I think that Scott made William use the Spring Bonnie suit because of how scared Scott was of Bonnie, but that's just idle speculation. That's like my kind of headcanon. There are also even more rundown versions and even scrap versions of Fred Trap, which are already haunting when you don't think about the fact that it would still be William inside the suit being kept alive by the spirit of his dead son. Fred Trap is definitely one of the most strangely horrifying versions of Fredbear or any Springlock animatronic that I've seen, and that's pretty damn impressive. And 10, Spring Bonnie. Spring Bonnie, while being canon in the main series, has only been showed in 8-bit cutscenes. It very well could have just been an animatronic too. But looking up Spring Bonnie on Google Images actually is pretty creepy for something that's only been in 8-bit and supposed to not be scary, since it's just an animatronic with an exoskeleton, or exosuit. For some reason, I find this more unsettling than the normal Springtrap. Maybe because I've been looking at normal Springtrap for so long that I've just gotten used to it? I don't know. The look of the completed and pristine Springtrap just puts me on edge for some reason. Maybe it's Maybelline, maybe it's because I think I'll be the next victim. Either way, Spring Bonnie is scary. I was gonna make a joke, like Spring Bonnie is spring scary, but it didn't work. I don't know why I thought of it. And a 9, Draw Kill. This Springtrap was drawn in the style of Draw Kill. At least that's what the image said. I was unable to find the original author since the 3 versions of this that showed up were small and Pinterest links that didn't give any credit, so that's unfortunate, but this thing sets me on edge. And not only this, but searching Drawkill Springtrap on Google will get you a load of monstrosities that will haunt your nightmares for the next few weeks. I'm not quite sure what it is about this animatronic that makes it so creepy, I just know that it's creeping the hell out of me. Why does this misfortune continue? And it ate Toy Springtrap. Toy Springtrap is what it sounds like. Springtrap in the form of Toy Bonnie instead of Golden Bonnie. Well, actually, Golden Toy Bonnie. This is creepy as hell. Can you imagine being stuck inside a toy animatronic? Like, obviously I'd like to be stuck inside Toy Chica, but not for so long that the parts of plastic start coming apart and deteriorating and my flesh starts melting and rotting away. Yeah, I don't like the thought of that, and yet here we are with Toy Springtrap and it hurts my feelings. Like on a deep level, like, at least they didn't do this to Chica, otherwise I think I would be crying on camera, and the editors would leave it in because they like to watch me suffer, just like the rest of you do.
Number 7. Expectation Scrap Trap. This is a design that was shared with the idea in mind of what Springtrap should or could look like once he became Scrap Trap. It was shared on Reddit and shows Scrap Trap reimagined as being patched up with various different parts and bits from other animatronics, fully formed as opposed to being quite so tattered and broken. Well, still tattered, I suppose, but just with less pieces missing overall, just also a little more put together looking in my opinion. Expectation Scrap Trap to me is a lot more colorful, which reduces some of the scare factor, but this version of Scrap Trap is also more functional, which is pretty scary. And I think it makes sense that Scrap Trap would patch themselves up with like actual animatronic pieces that we might recognize, considering whose corpse is also inside here, and therefore who the pilot behind that animatronic really is. You'd think you see some reflection with, like, you know, maybe some other animatronic pieces that we've seen before, that this person may have also made, you know what I mean?
And it's 6. Nightmare Springtrap. We all love the Nightmare animatronics. They're some of the scariest things in the games that we've seen, but Springtrap was missing from the bunch, obviously, since this would have been before Springtrap was a thing, at least in the timeline wise. And William caused the hallucinations anyway, but the fan versions of Nightmare Springtrap are some horrific shit. With the famous stomach mouth and razor sharp munchers, this guy will eat your arm and left testicle for breakfast and then come back for seconds, and then will finish you off for lunch, then regurgitate you again come dinner. But you're also forced to deal with this cycle every day, and it's still you every day. You just somehow come back to life so he can eat you again. I don't know where this analogy came from, like, I'm not okay. FNAF has actually broken me. Halfway through into number 5, Bread Bear. Bread Bear is an animatronic coming from the Day Shift at Freddy's series who was created by Dave by modifying a Fredbear suit. The character appears in Day Shift at Freddy's 1, 2, and 3. Bread Bear's appearance is oddly similar to Fredbear, albeit wider, I guess because of the gluten. He is a golden colored bear animatronic wearing a purple top hat and bow tie, and 2 black and white buttons on his chest. He has gray metallic eyes, thicker arms and legs, a squarish brown nose, small brown pupils, small white teeth, round ears, with the insides being a lighter shade of color, and a very circular shaped stomach with brownish shades scattered amongst it. He has rips around his feet joints and arm joints, and he appears for real when Dave modifies an empty Fredbear suit and unleashes it during the Sting operation on Friday, in which, depending on which route you took, it either attempts to kill Jack, dies, or it destroys the entire pizza joint and then sets itself on fire. And you know what? We love that. We love the chutzpah. That's the kind of tactics we need in this cutthroat animatronic world. And for Springtrap Endo. What would Springtrap look like without an exosuit? Without the stuff that actually makes him look like Springtrap. A monster comprised of human flesh and gore and some metal thrown in. Yeah, Springtrap Endo is the endoskeleton of Springtrap with William Afton still connected. Not only does that sound painful as hell, it looks like it. But this thing is so bloody, honestly, a lot of it may be black and white, or something like that. We may not be allowed to show it on YouTube. Well, we probably could show it, but we may get in trouble for doing so. So, watch at your own risk there. YouTube, I said it. Are we okay? Are we good? Getting close to the end, and at number 3, Reaper Spring Bonnie. Reaper Spring Bonnie, however, is the opposite of Shadow Spring Bonnie. This Reaper variant appears in Final Nights 3 and 4 and is an absolute monstrosity, but is definitely more terrifying in Final Nights 4, okay? He is 100% the scariest animatronic in those games. In essence, Reaper Spring Bonnie is a nightmare Springtrap. He has sharp teeth and a very damaged and withered body. His suit is a dark yellow in color, he sports a big purple bow tie on his upper chest, kinda like Glitch Trap does, which is ironic given that this released first, I'm pretty sure. And like other Reaper animatronics, Reaper Spring Bonnie has a pair of hollow, dark eyes, kind of like my ex. In Final Nights 4, however, his appearance is much more disfigured and gruesome, with sharper teeth, sharper claws, a different jaw, growths resembling kind of shoulder pads made of fungi, and a gooier appearance overall. He's also missing half of his right ear, kind of like Springtrap. I mean, like, that's kind of like a given at this point. Like, if you're missing half your ear, it's a reference to Springtrap. But oh my god, okay, this thing is more terrifying than Springtrap. Like, this is what Springtrap should have been. Or honestly, what I think a Nightmare Springtrap would look like I said. This is like a prototype burn trap in my eyes, or like a melt trap, which is probably going to be the next iteration of Athens. Proto trap though, that's a good one. Ultimately, in at number 2, Ignited Springtrap. Ignited Springtrap comes to us from the wonderfully horrific and terrifying world of the Joy of Creation. Ignited Springtrap is what I feel like Springtrap would have been. With no jaw and his horrifying demeanor overall, this guy will make you bricks. I'm not even sorry about the swearing because this one was necessary. Normal Springtrap is bad enough, but crank it up to an 11 and then throw it into the real world and then all of a sudden you get this thing. And if you're unaware, the premise of Joy of Creation is that you play as Scott Cawthon and the animatronics are coming after you in our world. Hence the name Joy of Creation. But we will also be getting a new and improved version of this character thanks to the Fazbear Fanverse initiative. Thanks, Scott. Just makes everything more terrifying. Hooray! Finally, in at number 1, Garvey. Garvey is the penultimate antagonist in Dormitibus. As a human, he was a man who murdered the missing children. He later went on to get trapped in Spring Bonnie, becoming Springtrap, and then was burned to a permanent death in the Fazbear Frights fire. Garvey is a extremely grotesque version of Springtrap. The suit on his limbs and body are heavily tattered and shredded, and his organic remains are far more visible than they are for the normal Springtrap. His lower jaw is deformed and broken, which disappears on at least one occasion, showing Garvey's corpse, mouth, and jaw. Cause, you know, why the hell not? And Garvey now has an unnatural animalistic stance, walking in all 4 limbs like a spider. His limbs also appear to be snapped in multiple places, alluding to the limbs being bent in unnatural ways, and the fact that his left hand serves as a foot and his left foot serves as a hand? What? He is also much bigger than Springtrap, or any other threat in the game. They were also named before the William Afton name reveal, I'm pretty sure, so this is just a random messed up dude, in at least Dormitibus lore. Yeah, no thank you, not anymore, no, go away.